Thank you guys very much. We are back with the Cold Hardy Citrus Taste Tests, and this is a bonus episode. This episode wasn't supposed to happen, so before we get into it, big thank you to Ross, who sent me not only the Augusta Citrangequat fruit, but also scions so that I could propagate and share this plant with you guys. So thank you very much, and he's not the first person who's done this to. Others will get mentioned as time goes on. I have been donated all sorts of fascinating and rare plant material by some of you, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you guys. Anyone who's sent me something, I appreciate it, especially if you've helped me build our collection, which in turn then helps everybody else because we are making all of these varieties publicly accessible. They will all be regularly for sale eventually. So we're building up our test rows so we could test these fruit, as well as building up our actual mother tree so we can then propagate these fruit. But this is none other than the Augusta Citrangequat in the flesh. It's a kind of older fruit. This was stored for a little bit, so this taste test may not be the most perfect representation of its full potential, but it should come pretty close. We have a pretty good sample here, and we did try one already, and I can tell you I was pleased with the results of this Citrangequat. So, as you guys know, Citrangequats are a cross between Citranges and Kumquats. The idea is combining the cold hardiness and dormancy of the Kumquat, well, with the cold hardiness of the Citrangequat, although it tends to break dormancy a little bit easier, and it just doesn't taste quite as good. But the Kumquat kind of helps balance that. And while this may not be perfectly Zone 7 hardy, it is marginally hardy in a lot of Zone 7s and probably perfectly hardy in a lot of Zone 8s, depending on where you're from. But the Augusta Citrangequat, this is a seed-grown plant, but it seems to be relatively true to type. I don't know exactly, but I will tell you, we have the seeds to find out. I'm soaking those in hydrogen peroxide right now, but we're going to be growing these plants from seeds, so we will have some available right away, and we will find out how true they are. Any off-types that we notice, however, we will be growing out because they all have potential. But this originated in the Florida Citrus Arboretum in Winter Haven, Florida, and seeds were collected by Tom McClendon. So this is a really old USDA hybrid Citrangequat. And these were developed at some point as some sort of rootstock, but obviously, as cold hardy citrus people, we see the potential in this as an ornamental and an edible citrus. And I can tell you it does both of those qualities very, very well. But it seems like from seed, and we're going to put this to the test, the seedlings are indeed vigorous. They grow well on their own roots. Not sure how trifoliate or not they are, but this plant is gorgeous. It looks like a beautiful kumquat tree. Dark foliage, big bright orange fruit. Actually might look even a little more like some of those mandarin quats too. It's a very appealing tree. Probably one of the most stunning I ever saw, and I knew as soon as I saw this, I wanted to have this one day. And Madison Citrus Nursery is also working on getting a clean source of Augusta Citrangequat too, so there's hope on multiple fronts for this variety. But Tom McClendon obtained seeds of this Citrangequat, this old USDA hybrid that was forgotten about and still at this arboretum probably until today. I'm not sure, maybe someone can confirm if you live in the area. And he gave it to his friend Joseph Levert in Augusta, Georgia. So this ended up growing out at some sort of middle school, high school. Perhaps if Tom is here watching, he could even give you a little bit more of the story, so I'm not just retelling what I've read online. But apparently it grew really well there, and it looked beautiful on those grounds. So this is a highly ornamental citrus, and just one with actually a lot of potential. I'm surprised this isn't out in further circulation already. But you guys already know how we feel about the Thomasville Citrangequat, so the Augusta Citrangequat, I mean, we had to try this, so I'm very excited. I'm glad we tried one already. It did pass the wife test. She liked this too, though we'll get into it. I actually found this is a little milder than Thomasville, but it could just be the ripeness of these fruit and the fact that they were stored in the refrigerator for quite a long time. So, let's get into the size first. because I do feel like the sample we have here is fairly representative of the group. Most of them were right around this size here. So we'll get something of an estimate on the size, which we'll just call that 70 grams. So it's probably somewhere, it's kind of more of a medium fruit. Honestly, it's quite big for being a kumquat cross, and we'll get into some of these similarities, but it does remind me a bit of, like, again, a mandarin quat or like a fukushu kumquat. So that's pretty interesting. Definitely size-wise, it feels similar to a fukushu when we've ordered them from California to test. So, getting into other aspects of this, obviously it's a beautiful fruit. We can zest this a little bit, and I could tell you the rind is indeed very kumquat-like, although interestingly, this might be an improvement on both kumquat and citrange because it didn't seem to have as many of the oils as kumquat even does that can kind of numb your lips a little bit just from the outside peel, while also being very edible. We'll give that a smell here. It just smells like a really nice orange. Actually, you do get kumquat in there too. It smells like orange and kumquat. You don't get any trifoliate smell in this, so I don't know what they used in this cross. I don't know, I mean, we know what a Citrangequat is, but I don't know the specific citrange they used, or even the kumquat they used. So the aroma is definitely, you get that orange and kumquat. It's pretty strict to those two. And we'll try this zest here. Wow. Not very bitter even as it sits. That's very pleasant zest. That's high quality. I'm not really getting any real resin or off flavor, even from the kumquat side. So trifoliate kumquat, none of that. And kumquat is obviously much more edible in this form, but I find that to be better than both. So that's pretty good so far. Anything else? It's been a while, so I'm trying to remember if there's anything else we do before we cut this thing, but I think we can get into it. So I will let you guys know as I get into this. This is a very juicy fruit, and I'm sure this one may be similar too, but it just drips juice. This thing is full. It's like an egg that's just full of juice. Okay. Give that a little twist. And look at that, it's dripping so much already. Wow. You guys see that there? So we got seeds galore inside. It is a seedy fruit. Not the seediest fruit in the world. There's certainly seedier, but it's pretty up there. It's got a good bit, but they come out very, very easily. So that does make testing this quite easy. But in one half of it, we have, that's already 4 seeds, 5 seeds, 6, 7, 8, 9. So assuming equal seeds in each side, that's close to 18 seeds in this fruit here. I mean, again, not a super small fruit. There's some trifoliate oranges that are much smaller with many more seeds, but for how many seeds that are in there, it's very juicy. So I'll say it is fairly seedy. And just to remind myself, I'll write down that we counted 18 seeds in that fruit. In terms of peelability, I think I tried this already, but just to try it on camera, this is like, I don't know, that is not peelable at all. I mean, that is hardly worth it. Yes, you can separate it. Would you ever do it successfully without getting juice everywhere? Probably not. So I'm going to say it's basically unpeelable. A lot of these are technicalities. Yes, you could probably maybe try to peel it, but that's basically impossible. Oh, and it's very, very juicy. I'm not sure. I mean, it has like a melting flesh to it too, interestingly. The flesh is a lot softer than like a Thomasville. So you just cut it open and it's gushing full of juice. and it is softer. I don't know if I'd put that as like a 9 or a 10 on the juiciness scale, but it's up there. For now, I'll just put like it's a 9 or 10, and I'll kind of compare to some of our other references and see where I put them. But I think that's going to rank really, really high in the juiciness. So this is a good juicing fruit right off the bat. I don't know in terms of juice storage characteristics just how good it might be for that purpose, but it's very juicy. So if you just squeeze a bunch of fruit and drank it right there, probably good for that purpose. Okay, so now I think we can get into the fun stuff, which is tasting this. So we'll get a nice slice off of here. I want to save enough juice to maybe get an electronic pH test, but if we don't have enough, I'll just do the old traditional one. All right, now off the bat, I'm going to want 2 slices of that. So I'll try and get just maybe 1 whole bite of this one, and then I'll get the other in kind of components. So there is our nice little slice of the Augusta. Let's give that a try. Very nice. That one has a little more tartness than our first one, actually. The first one was a bit milder. Now this one is showing a little more of its character. So we're going to get a little more. And now just the flesh. I'll tell you what I'm thinking. Oh yeah, just the flesh is quite good. Okay. So, and then just the peel is quite sweet. The flavor? It tastes like a toned down fukushu. So objectively, I hate using that term, but like a worse fukushu kumquat. That portrays it in a bad light. But this fruit is good. It's less sweet than a fukushu, or like other kumquats, obviously. Even in terms of mandarin quats and stuff, those could be quite sweet as well. So comparatively, it tastes like it has a lower sugar content. That's about it. In terms of acidity, these are quite ripe, so they're not as acidic as they could be, but they could be much more acidic earlier in the season, where they'd probably make a pretty good sour orange substitute, probably a good citrus that you can marinate meats with and use for dressings, things like that. It might be comparable to Thomasville earlier in the season. I'm not sure what they're like green, but at their fully ripe orange stage, very juicy, fairly mild, but still pretty balanced in terms of sweetness and sourness, actually. That one I got a little more sour bite than I did the first one, but the first one was a little sweeter too. So this one was pretty balanced. I'd say it has a light but balanced sweetness. Sourness is slight. Probably put it more in the realm of like tart. It wasn't enormously sour. I'll get one more just to make sure. Yeah, it's probably tart at best. But I'll tell you, that's a fun fruit to snack on because it gives you that kumquat hit if you're craving kumquats or if you like kumquats. But perhaps it's a little less harsh in terms of the overall oils. So you can definitely tell as you still eat it. Kind of the same with some kumquats. You can't eat like a whole bowl of them just because of those intense and really delicious oils that they have. Highly aromatic and everything, but they will leave your mouth feeling a little bit numb. So just an understandable side effect. But bitterness, I mean, none really. And again, from Trifolia, from kumquat, I'm not getting anything along those lines. Trifolia influence, I'm going to have to say none. Honestly, I probably wouldn't believe it if someone told me this had 25% trifoliate orange. Like if this was one of those types of crosses, I just wouldn't buy it right away. I mean, if I saw the objective data, you know, I get it, but this does not come across like a 25% hybrid. This almost, I could see somehow, and I'm sure this is true to type from the descriptions and everything, but I could see this being a second generation seedling, well, which it is, the source that we have now, from that original Arboretum fruit. And the second generation seedling is even more citrus-like than the first. But then again, even Thomasville itself can be very citrus-like when it's fully ripe too. So there's just something about those kumquats being involved that makes them so much more edible. So I'm really, really curious about the hardiness here. We are going to test it out, and I will have plants in the greenhouse and protected too. I'll do the same strategy as with Thomasville too, in case this one is a precocious flowerer and it doesn't want to grow very well. I'm going to graft some of the seedlings onto rootstock too to get them nice and thick for the winter testing, because that was an issue we had with Thomasville. But edibility is I mean, that honestly, it's probably just about dessert quality, maybe like a 9 or something. It's right up there. It's not perfectly on par with like your standard mandarins and stuff, but it's really, really close. That's very good. And flavor and aroma are basically the same. Orange, kumquat, orange quat. It's in that realm. So this would make an absolutely wonderful marmalade fruit for juicing, for candying, like candied peels, and obviously fresh eating. Fresh eating. It's a great one for that, and that's a hard quality to come by with a lot of these hardy citrus, so that is pretty astounding. All right, so we're gonna get a Brix test on this. I'm really curious about the sugar content because, at least to my taste buds, I can't imagine it being that high, but sometimes I've been surprised. We will see, but given what I'm tasting, I think it's a little on the lighter side. All right, so we got a nice little drop there. And now we can test that. And you know what? That kind of reads like what I'd suspect. It's like just a hair below 10, but we can basically call that a 10. So it's reading a 10 on the Brix refractometer. All right, so 10 Brix, which isn't exceptional. That's actually kind of low, especially considering a lot of dessert citrus. You know, we might want to see like 12, 13 or more. But again, that could just be on some of these fruit and how late in the season I'm having them. I mean, right now it is actually March. So just to put that in perspective, although now is a great time, and even starting last month, I believe, to order kumquats, mandarin quats, orange quats, things like that, for the fresh fruit online. We've gotten them from California in times past, around this time of year, and they are delicious. So those come into season in the winter, and similarly, a lot of these Citrangequats also ripen in the winter. They tend to ripen closer to like February, basically, although they start to be very edible around January. So we're gonna pop out the remaining seeds in here, so just a little patience, and we can actually get a full count. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ended up being at 7. Oh no, we got more in there. 8, 9. Wow, that was a balanced fruit. So truly was 18 seeds in there. So that's 18 new little seedlings, minus a few that will be subjected to my experiments. Those will eventually make it to you guys too. So we're gonna have to add that one to the website there and add a little description about it. But that's super fun. Thank you again, Ross, for sharing this with me. I can't understate how much I appreciate that, because without you, we would not have this review. And thank you to everyone else, again, who shared fruit for past reviews, too. You guys are awesome. Alright, so just half of that, and I didn't even squeeze it fully, gave me enough juice to test. That, I'm changing my 9 to 10, that's just a 10. That's a very, very juicy fruit. It's unbelievably juicy. That's probably one of its best qualities so far. And then we're just going to get our pH reading. What are we reading? Okay, let's see. I want to hold that level so I'm not getting any funky readings. Yep, and it does seem like, you know what, I could put a little, I'm going to put a little more juice in there just to make sure that this is reaching everything. I'm still going to eat those too. The peel is delicious. Alright, I think that's reaching better. There we go. Yeah, at first we were getting a really basic reading. I was kind of surprised. That's reading a 2.9 on there, and it's seeming pretty stable now. Yeah. So we got a 2.9 on the bricks. So that's fairly acidic, obviously. But you could see that this particular fruit is reading a 2.9 pH while also having a 10 on the bricks. That is a combination, of course, that we could tell creates a tartar but milder fruit. The last one we had was probably a little higher in pH, so there probably is a range for these. And it might have been either similar or higher in sugar. Virginia Fruit Grower also tested this. Make sure you check out his channel because, I mean, he's the OG of Hardy Citrus, as I knew. And he did a review on the Augusta Citrangequat that was really good. And I think he read higher bricks on his too. So he may have just had a fresher, better fruit. And he actually got more mandarin flavors with his. I could say if I did get any mandarin flavors, they were pretty mild. It was probably if you got like a mandarin at the grocery store and it wasn't the most acidic one, I could definitely see those flavors paralleling between these. But otherwise, let me not forget, let's post the score of this fruit up here so you can see how this fruit ranks compared to some of its peers and how it compares to the Thomasville in terms of the rankings. I'm actually personally really curious how this fruit will score compared to the Thomasville since that's our primary reference currently. Eventually, I do want to try the Sinton Citrangequat, and our plant is growing and flushing out currently, so perhaps we'll get some blooms and get to try that one. I've heard that one, while probably equally as beautiful as the Augusta Citrangequat, is more acidic and probably a little more lime-like in terms of those purposes. It's like a very, very sour kumquat from what I've heard, but apparently still fairly good. Again, the Citrangequats are generally pretty good. There's one, I forget if it's like 10-3-4 or something like that. There's like a large pear lemon looking one that Madison Citrus Nursery has currently. That's probably the only one I've heard that doesn't really taste good. It's primarily just ornamental, but we're not sure on the exact background of that one. And it also seems a lot less kumquatty than this or Thomasville or even Sinton. So there may be something to that kumquat appearance and embracing that kumquat heritage for these fruit to then taste better. But you guys already know we have plans to recreate different like mandarin quats and things like that. I'm really hoping we get some flowers on both our kumquats and also some of our citranderins that are more zygotic like US 852 and even bishop, because if we could get a bishop or US 852 crossed with a kumquat, now we're talking the same conditions that created these beautiful Citrangequats, but now with more mandarin in the mix. So potentially hardier, maybe better tasting. That is yet to be determined, of course. It's just speculation currently. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I enjoyed this fruit. I thought it was a fun one for sure. Again, in terms of its milder flavor, I actually technically preferred Thomasville currently, but I'm reserving my judgment because this fruit is not in its prime. So if I had a fresh fruit right off the tree, maybe I'd be able to make a better judgment. But so far it seems really promising in all other regards, so I'm really excited about this one. I'm excited to have seeds for this and grafting material, so I will propagate this every way that I can, and we are not losing the Citrangequat as long as I'm in town. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.